iPhone 5S versus iPhone 10. Is it time to upgrade? Coming up right now. Let's go. So what is up, guys? Nick here, helping you to master your technology, and welcome to the Apple iPhone 5S versus the Apple iPhone 10. Is it time to upgrade? Well, let's go ahead and begin with the boot up test. It's not a speed test video. We're going to be, talking the differences here, and I could hear it already from you trolls. Oh, why are you making this video? It makes no sense. You're comparing a 2013 phone to a 2017 phone. You're losing all of your credibility, Nick. Well, if you actually take a look at this, there's still a lot of people, I would say millions, still using the iPhone 5S right now. And maybe they just been holding off because the Plus models were just a little too big for them. And finally, you have a smaller, more compact phone with a larger screen in iPhone 10. And you can see just how much faster it does boot up over the older 5S, which kind of takes forever to boot up. And honestly, this phone is really slow these days, but it did get better on iOS 11.1.2. So yeah, you can see there's the boot up there. Let's talk about the body, the build, and design now between these two phones. All right, so let's talk about the upgrade when it comes to the design, the body, and the build. Now, a lot of people love this device, and I'm not actually making this video to promote the 5S. I know kind of like whenever you make a video, you kind of do that, but I really don't suggest that anybody buy this phone anymore. I don't care how cheap it is. iOS 11 has really made this device kind of slow, and it kind of overheats, and it just doesn't run the way iOS is meant to run here in 2017. Now, if you are on an older version, it might be okay, but really, I'm not making this video to promote iPhone 5S. I'm making this to help people who are deciding to upgrade. And I know, of course, I'm going to get some iPhone 5S backlash fans in the comment section. That's fine. But when you come from a 5S to the iPhone 10, you really feel like you have upgraded quite substantially in the design because of the stainless steel borders. So the stainless steel borders have this reinforcement that just feels much more premium than the sharp edges of the iPhone 5S. Now, the 5S was a comfortable size when it comes to one-handing the device, but it kind of, dug into the corner of your palm right there, and it's a little sharp. So I did like the 5S with a case more than I did using it without a case. Now, the iPhone 10, on the other hand, feels very smooth and premium in the palm. So it's a much more comfortable feel, if you ask me. Now, the lightness of the older, smaller iPhones, all of them, has been great. So I don't like the fact that this phone is 174 grams versus like 113 grams here on 5S. So that's a little bit better. I do like lighter phones, but at the same time, it has that weight that reinforces that it's premium. Now, on the rear of the device, you do have a dual camera. The 5S probably has a better design when it comes to the camera being flat and flush to the device, whereas you have a hump on iPhone 10. So I still give a win there for the 5S on that one. And I do like the button placement on the right, on the top of the 5S. It was kind of natural. Over here on the right, it definitely makes sense here on this device because this wouldn't, work here on an iPhone 10. That would be a little unnatural. But in terms of design, I think you do get an upgrade in some areas and a downgrade in others. But overall, the iPhone 10 definitely feels much more premium, but the rear is much more susceptible than the 5S to break. So if you do buy this phone, you absolutely need a case, or you need insurance or Apple Care. Okay, so let's talk about the display differences. It's pretty clear the iPhone 10 has the OLED display, 5.8 inch, 458 pixels per inch. It's the better display. That's black and white. That's pretty obvious facts, spec sheets. But let's talk a little bit more, nuanced here between these two. The iPhone 5S has a crispy display, even though it's 4 years old, going on 5 now. Coming to an iPhone 10 will be a welcome change because you'll get a larger display, but Apple has tended to keep their sharp, well-balanced, accurate colors on this phone, just like they have been doing for years on their other Retina displays. So this will feel like an improvement, but not like you're straying too far away from the way Apple does their Retina displays. So you will love the update here, I think, in terms of display quality. Now, I'm not going to talk too much about the notch. We all have our personal preferences with that. But what I do want to say is that it's not so black and white coming to a larger display. It's wider than the iPhone 5S, so you might like your one-handed, typing. Maybe we'll see an SE2 next year. I don't know. Maybe that'll be, a small phone that'll still be one-handed. But coming from this to this will feel like it's a much larger phone. You have to reach a little bit more. It's a taller display, so it's not as compact and portable. And most people would agree that a larger display is better, but there's still a niche audience, a pretty large one of that really prefers compact displays. And if you got large hands, this just doesn't cut it anymore. But if you do have, smaller hands, you might appreciate this more than this guy right here. So it really does come down to your own personal preferences here, but in sheer quality purposes, the iPhone 10 will be a mass upgrade over your older 5S. So, coming to this, you're going to be very happy. Okay, so in terms of software, the classic iOS 11 runs here on the 5S, 11.1.2. The 5S should be receiving updates for at least, I'd say, one more year on this device. I don't know if it's going to get iOS 12. The fact that it got iOS 11 is a good sign it might get iOS 12. And actually, it was pretty horrible when I first updated the 5S, but it's been getting a little bit better on battery life as well as performance on the latest 11.1.2. So while it's not a super fast phone, you can see it's not really loading stuff quickly at all. It does do a pretty decent job at still being a functional phone. So what I mean by that is 5S is still usable here in 2017. It's just not a pleasant experience versus any of the other newer iPhones, like iPhone 10, for example. You do have a new gesture system on here, which is going to be a very different change from your Touch ID that you're used to on your 5S. You do have to pull up from the top, making it feel a little bit more like Android. So in terms of software, of course, it's going to be super long lasting on the iPhone 10, but it works very different. So if you're upgrading to this, just be ready to come to a gesture-based OS. All right, so let's talk about performance between these two. It's clear that we're coming from an A7 to an A11, leaps and bounds ahead in terms of processing performance. In the day-to-day, this is a case where it really does show quite a bit. The iPhone 5S feels extremely slow in comparison to the iPhone 10 and pretty much everything that you do. And even the system apps are a lot slower for the iPhone 5S. You can see right there, just look how long it took to download that. Now, it might seem like, oh, it doesn't matter. I can wait a second for things to load. But throughout the day, all those seconds that you're waiting on every single app to load does add up and does take up your time, which is one thing you don't get back in life is your time. So the A11 is a huge leap when it comes to performance. Just don't even think about it. If you're coming from a 5S and you're ready to upgrade to an iPhone 10, 8, 8 Plus, or 7 and 7 Plus, just do it when it comes to performance. Don't even question that. It's huge leaps and bounds better. So in terms of battery life, here's going to be one exceptional part of coming to this new phone is all-day battery life. You're going to get that on iPhone 10. You're not even getting close to that on the iPhone 5S. This phone is kicking out at about 3 hours of on-screen time, sometimes less for me on iOS 11. Now, the iPhone 10, on the other hand, is kicking out at about 6 to 7 hours of on-screen time. So you're looking at like a 50 to 60% improvement when it comes to the battery life on the iPhone 10 versus the iPhone 5S. So upgrade to this phone if you do want to see massive improvements when it comes to your battery life going throughout the day, especially on iOS 11. So I want to talk about a few miscellaneous things with the iPhone 5S versus the iPhone 10. You come from Bluetooth 4.0 to Bluetooth 5.0, which is a huge leap for connectivity through Bluetooth, makes it much more reliable, much more fast when it comes to connecting devices. This one also, is like 3 generations behind. It's like 4.1 Bluetooth, 4.2, and now 5.0. So yes, that's a huge update there. Also, you're going to get the Animojis features on the iPhone 10. You're going to get Face ID unlock, which is much more secure than Touch ID, even though it might be a little bit slower. But in this case, this is first gen Touch ID, so this is not super quick either, but it does do the job. 1 in 50,000 versus 1 in a million. Also, you get something called Tap to Wake on the iPhone 10, which you don't get on any other iPhone really. So that's a nice update as well. Just something small that you should take note of. So one of the major features on any iPhone, and you see that little, bug right there where the icon stays dark on the iPhones, is the camera. So this is, for most people, their only camera that they carry on them. And here is where one of the biggest upgrades are going to come from the iPhone 5S to the iPhone 10. That's going to be more noticeable than pretty much anything else besides the display. Display is really noticeable as the camera. Dual camera, and it not only improves in that, it has 2 lenses, big deal. No, it improves in pretty much every area. It does have 8 megapixels on the 5S, 12 megapixels megapixels to 12 megapixels, a 7 megapixel camera on the front. So the front camera on the iPhone 10 is almost the same resolution as the one on the rear of the iPhone 5S. Now, the 5S couldn't even do 4K video. It couldn't do slow-mo at 1080p. You can do that here. You can do 4K cinematic 24 FPS, 4K at 60 portrait modes with a telephoto lens that can zoom up to 10x and go 2x on the optical. Live photos. This camera right here will take your iPhone 5S to school, and basically you have an entry-level camera here or a budget point and shoot with the 5S, and you're coming to like a DSLR on the iPhone 10 is what I mean in terms of the upgrade. It is massive. So if you're ready for a great camera on your smartphone, you've had enough of just decent photos, get the iPhone 10, you're gonna be a happy camper. A couple other things I forgot to mention here. Audio is much better on the iPhone 10. You do have front firing speaker up at the top, one at the bottom, and it's very loud and crisp versus this tinny, easy to cover, very weak speaker on the iPhone 5S. It wasn't loud at all. You do have a true tone display here, which you don't get on the 5S. 3D touch also, which is like a little vibration in the phone. It's not that big of a deal, but it does work, and it's a pretty cool feature if you do tend to use them shortcuts. It's kind of like a right click on a computer. But what is the conclusion here? Is it time to upgrade? Well, maybe. It depends on who you are. If you think this phone is too small and you've been looking to go to a really large phone, this is more like the size of the iPhone 8. So if you want to upgrade to a large iPhone, I would wait one more year to get the Plus version of this phone, which will be more refined. Apps will be updated by then. But in terms of just the sheer phone, there is no contest here. The iPhone 10 improves on the iPhone 5S in every way. Now, if you just can't get over that design of the 5S, get yourself an SE. They're like $130 now, depending on where you get them. Don't get it at Apple. It's way cheaper at other places. And if you do want to get, an iPhone SE, there might be an SE2 update over this if you still want to stay with your compact design. But I can tell you right now, there's no contest here. The 5S is old news. The 10 has taken the spot as the best iPhone you can buy right now in terms of just sheer technology. Anyway, if you found this video helpful, enjoyable, do me a favor, click the like button for me. And if you got any comments, questions, feedback, concerns, drop it down below. And if you're new here, consider subscribing. Nick here, helping you to master your technology. Be sure to be well. I will catch you all in the next one, and peace.